Hey folks, this is Darth checking in with you. Welcome. I am so excited. At the time of filming this, The Wheel of Time's first 3 episodes drops in about 10 hours, I think. And I could not be more excited. I've got my red coat on. I am ready for this to begin. So, before we get started, also let me say, a few people have started subscribing to me, and thank you. That's really awesome. Oh, that is too bright for these eyes. Whew. Seared my cornea like a tuna steak just now. Oh God, that was bright. Okay, I want to cover something here. This is for if you've read the books, if you haven't read the books, if you're new to the show, before you watched it, you just watched it, it's a year later, you want to get some content. This is for all of you. This is 8 things that are going to help you as we start this journey together. So, some of it is going to be more keyed in to those of you who are new watchers, and some of it's going to be for those of you who have read everything. But I think honestly that this will be helpful. It's not going to be one of those, this is what this is, like these people wear blue type crappy videos. So here's 8 things for you, and I'll also say no spoilers. This is not going to spoil anything about the show, anything about the books. It is just general tips that will help. Here's my number one. When you watch this show, or if you already have, I want you to know that the tropes that you see are intentional. The giant minotaur-looking dudes that you've seen in the trailers, and that's not a spoiler because it's been in the trailers. They want you to know that going in. People wielding, magic to do fire and lightning, again, in the trailers. All kinds of tropey, things that you see with the characters and their plot lines, etc. That is intentional. That is there to lure you in with a false sense of security so that Robert Jordan can then pull the rug out from underneath you. Or Rafe Judkins now, right? And I want you to know that the term, which has lately gotten a negative connotation, subvert your expectations, now of late means crappy writing, right? Because that's like Arya killed the Night King, and we've had years of setup for Jon being the one to do that. That is not what this is. This is, for plot reasons, I can't explain why, but you will understand later on. This is setting things up that you are familiar with, specifically so that later on it can turn in a direction you don't see coming, and it just highlights that change, and it's done in a very satisfying way. It will not disappoint you in that regard. So that's my number one thing. The tropes are intentional, and they are there very purposefully, and the writer knows what he's doing. Number 2, this world is far, far bigger than the other worlds that you have read or seen in the fantasy genre. It's bigger than Game of Thrones. It is bigger than the world of The Witcher. I would say it's bigger than The Lord of the Rings. Again, for spoiler reasons, I'm not going to get into why or how here, though I am happy to debate that with some fans later on if you guys want to. But it is the biggest fantasy epic world that's out there, I think. At least so far that's been introduced into TV and whatnot. It's definitely the biggest of those. And I say that to say, don't expect to get everything that you need to know right off the bat. There's too much. It would be 8 episodes of world building with 0 plot development, and there's a whole lot of plot development that needs to happen. So they're probably going to give you what you need and leave you in the dark on the rest. So that's an important thing to know. But wait on it. Give them time. They're going to feed you. They're going to feed you. And there's, of course, resources like this one that will help. Third thing I need to tell you. The Lord of the Rings is the most famous, best-selling fantasy series in the world. The Wheel of Time, you may not have heard of if you don't read fantasy, if you don't have your finger on the genre, but it is the second best-selling fantasy series in the world. And the reason that it hasn't been adapted up till now is not because it's not as good, or it doesn't have as much quality, or it's less interesting. Nothing like that. The reason is that it's about 7 times larger than The Lord of the Rings. The scope and scale of this is so great that it has been virtually impossible to sign up to adapt it. I think especially to sign up for saying, yes, I'm going to devote 8 to 9 seasons of TV to this, and we can't stop once we get started unless the whole thing just completely flops and each episode's going to cost $10 million. That's a hard thing for a studio to sign up for. It couldn't be done in movies. Lord of the Rings, it's like the Lord of the Rings, you can do movies because you can split it into thirds, and each third is relatively the same length as, I mean, they're movie sized at that point. You can chop them down. The Wheel of Time has a chapter that is longer than Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in one book. So it's not a matter of quality that's kept it from being adapted. It's a sense of scale that has kept it from being adapted to this point. And now we're finally at a place where CGI is inexpensive enough, and you can, hire some talented but relatively unknown actors to play your parts and put in a big lead. They've figured out how to make this stuff on TV now. So that's why it's taken you so long to hear of this. Number four. A lot of modern fantasy is called grimdark. Grimdark is a term in the fantasy world that's used to describe shows that have a sort of bleak nihilism to them. And it can present itself in many different ways. Some Star Wars, expanded Star Wars has been grimdark. Like, it happens all over the place. The Witcher has grimdark elements to it. Game of Thrones, there's going to be a lot of Game of Thrones fans that are watching this show. Game of Thrones is incredibly grimdark. All the characters are swearing and saying the F word and the C word, stuff like that all the time, which I'm not in this video because I'm trying to keep it a little more PC. They are, there's just constant sex and head smashing and gratuitous violent acts, right? And then you contrast that's modern fantasy, that's grimdark fantasy, and you contrast that with The Lord of the Rings, which is traditional fantasy, and it's all about the perseverance of the human spirit, or hobbit spirit, but the perseverance of a person who is willing to go through something because they have hope, and the strength of men can uprise. And right, The Lord of the Rings is a very different feel, no less fantasy, perhaps even more fantastical than those other examples, but a lot more hopeful. The Wheel of Time is known as a bridge series. A lot of people reference it and say that it is the iconic figure of the bridge between traditional and modern fantasy. And as such, it's not going to hold back from showing you some hardcore stuff. You're definitely going to get some of that. But it's also not going to be Game of Thrones, frankly. It's just not. Season 1 is not going to be a porn film filled with murder in between the porn bits. So it's a different show, and it's going to have its own thing. Okay, number 5 here. I can't stress this enough. Don't Google anything. Let me back up. Don't Google anything. If you start to type the first 3 letters of a character's name, Google autofill will tell you things about that character you don't want to know. You will get everything spoiled. Instead, I have a list of resources for you. Check out on YouTube. Actually, here's an easy one. I'm going to plug myself for a second here. On Saturday, between 11 and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be live on YouTube answering your questions. Did you just watch the show last night and you want to know 5 things about it? Come join me. I'll be live. I'll talk to you. I will answer in a way that does not spoil anything that the show did not already show you. If it is a difference between the book and the show, I will tell you that, but I will not spoil anything further for you. You don't want to visit me during that live stream or watch it later? That's totally fine. Daniel Green is an incredibly respected member of the community. He is on YouTube. You can look him up. He has a ton of spoiler-free videos about the background and the world of the Wheel of Time, all from the book perspective, mind you, but he's also doing video content like this, probably right now. The Dusty Wheel, another incredibly famous YouTube channel. None of those work for you. Okay, I totally respect that. You don't want YouTube content, you want to look something up. My home forum, which I have about 25,000 posts on, and have even coined some of the popular terms that the community uses. That forum is Dragonmount. Dragonmount's an excellent resource. You don't want to go to Dragonmount. The 13th Depository or Tarvalin.net. Those are great to use. You can go to any of those places, post a question, and you will get awesome answers from a really engaged, really excited fan base and community. I will also mention the Wheel of Time subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/WOT. Stole that shit straight from World of Tanks. So there's you a lot of resources so that you don't have to Google anything, and you can still get your fix on that one thing that you just need to know, which I totally get. I encourage you to not do it, but I understand if you need to know it. So that said, let's talk about 6, 7, and 8 here. Number 6, this is for you guys who watched Game of Thrones. I did too. I want to tell you this right now. I know how you got hurt. I know. I convinced my family in season 6, my family who did not watch fantasy. I convinced my mom, who watches rom-coms exclusively. I convinced my History Channel and documentary dad. I convinced my wife. I convinced everybody to watch all of Game of Thrones with me. We were all excited. We watched season 7 together, and then we got so disappointed at the end of season 8. And I want to tell you, that's not going to happen here. Look, I can't predict the future. I guess Rafe Judkins could go completely off the rails, and he could totally change the ending. But what you do need to know is that the Wheel of Time book series has been complete for almost a decade. It has been written, it is done, and it is fantastic. It is unique, it's inspiring. Basically, this is a community-wide thing. Everybody that finishes that 14-book, 15 if you include the prequel, 4.5 million word book series. They get to the end, and the ending has such a high, they immediately start over and start reading the whole thing again. You are not going to be let down by the end of this. Alright, so that said, my last 2 things here, my last 2 bits are more directed at those of you who have read all of the books. And if you haven't, I still think that this is a good place to hear this. But 2 things. Relax a little. I've been watching the controversy stir and brew for the last couple of years. I've been watching people get more nitpicky as they got anxious as the show gets close. We're all excited, but relax a little. When Fellowship of the Ring came out, Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring, the first of the Lord of the Rings movies released, it got panned by critics. I remember vividly that one person said that it's just like they fight and then they move to a new location and the same fight happens in that new location every 20 minutes, and in between it's just boring and there's just nothing going on. And that was a critic review of Fellowship, right? This is the start. This is only 8 episodes. They can't fit the whole world of the Wheel of Time into 8 episodes. This is a beginning to the Wheel of Time, and it's going to take a while for everything to get there. You're not going to get everything that you need to know. You're going to get some of what you need to know. They just don't have the time to put it in. So relax a little, sit back, enjoy this. And that actually leads into my number 8 point, which is enjoy this. This is not books, guys. This is a different turning. I'll tell you right now, this is not, I just said it a second ago, this is not the beginning. This is a beginning. After all, there are no beginnings or endings to the Wheel of Time. Y'all, have a great day. I'll see you later.